Yo, Caro, Taco Bell. What's up, guys? Happy Thursday. We have an announcement to make, and it is good news. The Supreme Court has came back in the case of Smith & Wesson versus Rich. Plug in your mic. Smith & Wesson versus Mexico versus Smith & Wesson. If you don't know what the case is, we're going to get to it. This case went up to the Supreme Court. Mexico sued Smith & Wesson with the help of Everytown and Brady, blah, 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 which Everytown and Brady used Mexico to file a lawsuit against Smith & Wesson because they said that it was leading to a bunch of deaths in Mexico. It couldn't be because the corrupt government in Mexico and the narco terrorists that basically run the government in Mexico, but they sued anyway. This went to the Supreme Court. We actually streamed the arguments at SCOTUS. And one of the interesting things when we streamed the arguments at SCOTUS was I thought that do we really want Rich's mic working? One of the things that I thought, I was like, this is going to be an 8-1 or 9-0. And if Rich, you were on it with me, and I said the only reason why I was thinking maybe 8-1 because I cannot imagine Jackson Brown. Don't call her Tarzan because I think that might be racist. I don't know.
Tarzan was white.
True. Yeah, well, maybe I'm wrong. All right. I'll give you that one. Okay. So basically what I said was I can't imagine her siding with the gun community, but apparently I see you guys over there on Rumble. Apparently she did, and it was 9-0.
The fudge! Do I have to send her a basket of fruit or something?
No, you don't. But we're gonna read through this. But I knew it was gonna be at least 8-1. I was like, it seemed like it's gonna be 9-0, but I can't imagine her actually doing something smart.
But is this changing the face of the Second Amendment forever?
It's basically keeping the Second Amendment the way it is forever. But whatever. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's read this, if you don't mind.
Ooh, hold on.
It's 24 pages, so it's not that long, which it honestly, it really didn't have to be because this is like so open and shut that it was like almost
Estados Unidos Mexicanos.
Yeah.
So Pew Company versus Taco Bell.
Yeah. Basically, Smith & Wesson says, hey, you can't sue us. We have the PLCA or PLACA, the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, which says that a company cannot be sued for the evils that people do with their products.
So the protection.
And Neil Watson says this is a short opinion, and he is absolutely right because, usually they get like into hundreds of pages. There's only 24 pages, so that's how cut and dry this was. And CNT Design says, sup, perps. And we're going to get to the rest of the super chats and whatnot after we read this.
Okay. PLACA bars certain lawsuits against manufacturers and sellers of firearms as relevant. It provides that qualified civil liability action may not be brought to in any federal or state court, USC blah, and defines that term to include a civil action or proceeding against a firearms manufacturer or seller stemming from criminal or unlawful misuse of a firearm by a third party. But PLACA's general bar on these suits has an exception, usually called the predicate exception, relevant here. That exception applies to lawsuits in which the defendant, manufacturer, or seller knowingly violates state or federal statute applicable to the sale or marketing of firearms, and the violation was a proximate cause of the harm for which relief is sought.
Pause right there. Okay. So just read a paragraph, then I'll let you know if we go. Okay, so basically, this is interesting because Plaka does have an exception. If you do something grossly negligent or something illegal, then you cannot use Plaka to protect yourself. Mexico tried to argue that since they made pretty guns or guns with really weird designs, which we can't show you, it made it particularly narcos friendly because they look good. Right. You know, the what or the names of the guns.
You mean like my 1911 by Fregat Designs?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah. Or the names of the guns. Like one like for example, the El Jefe. Oh well, the name is something Mexican, so that they're targeting cartel members, which is
So
crazy.
if you name a firearm any cartel member name or something that would sound like that,
That's
like
what they're trying to argue. But let's continue.
the predicate violation PLACA demands may come from aiding and abetting someone else's firearm offense. PLACA itself lists examples, two ways in which aiding and abetting qualifies. When a gun manufacturer or seller aids and abets another person in making a false statement about the gun sales legality or in making specified criminal sales. And more broadly, because federal law provides that whoever aids and abets a federal crime is punishable as a principle. A gun manufacturer that aids and abets federal gun crime itself may commit a PLACA predicate violation. Here,
Which remember after Paul left every paragraph, that didn't happen. So those are the exceptions. They're saying that did not happen. Well, they will say that didn't happen. Keep on going.
Here, the government of Mexico sued 7 American gun manufacturers, alleging that the companies aided and abetted unlawful gun sales that routed firearms to Mexican drug cartels. The basic theory of its suit is that the defendants failed to exercise reasonable care to prevent trafficking of their guns into Mexico and so are responsible for the harms arising from the weapons misuse. That theory implicates PLACA's general prohibition. So the complaint tries to plead its way into the predicate exception. It alleges that the manufacturers were willful accessories in unlawful gun sales by retail gun dealers, which in turn enabled Mexican criminals to acquire guns. And it sets out 3 kinds of allegations relating to how the manufacturers aided and abetted retailers' unlawful sales. The manufacturers allegedly supply firearms to retail dealers whom they know illegally sell Mexican gun traffickers. They failed to.
Okay. Oh, hold on for 1 second. Where were you at?
I think 2.
Okay,
they have failed to impose the kind of controls on their distribution networks that would prevent illegal sales to Mexican traffickers and make design and marketing decisions intended to stimulate cartel members' demand for their products. The district court dismissed the complaint, but First Circuit reversed, finding Mexico had plausibility, alleged that defendants aided and abetted illegal firearm sales. Held because
Okay. Let's stop right there. Actually, no. Read the last one, then we'll go.
Held because Mexico's complaint does not plausibly allege that defendant gun manufacturers aided and abetted gun dealers' unlawful sales of firearms to Mexican traffickers. PLACA bars the lawsuit, whatever, PP 715, don't know what that is.
All right. So basically, there was Brady put out a CLE, which is continuing legal education, and how to sue gun manufacturers to try to get around PLACA. And what's interesting is they're using the same argument as the CLE. We do know that Brady helped Mexico in this case. So I think what we're seeing from Mexico is a bunch of Brady lawyer bullshit.
Wow. Federal aiding and abetting law reflects the view that a person may be responsible for a crime he has not personally carried out if he deliberately helps another complete its commission. To aid and abet a crime, a person must take an affirmative act in furtherance of the offense and intended to facilitate its commission, or as a judge stated, these requisites must participate in a crime as in something that he wishes to bring about and seek by his action to make it succeed. United States blah. In elaborating on that demand, this court has developed several ancillary principles. First, aiding and abetting is most commonly liability for specific wrongful acts through broader liability for a category of misconduct is possible if wrongdoers' participation is correspondingly pervasive, systematic, and culpable. Another case cited. Second, aiding and abetting usually requires misfeasance rather than nonfeasance. Absent an independent duty to act, failures, omissions, or inactions will rarely support liability. And third, routine and general activity that happens on occasion to assist in a crime, in essence, incidentally, is to count as aiding and abetting. Thus, for instance, an ordinary merchant does not become liable for criminal misuse of his or her goods simply by knowing that in some fraction of cases misuse will occur.
Basically, I was saying that, hey, man, most people buy this stuff that's doing it for legal reasons. There are bad people that buy them, but the company is not selling to these knowingly selling to these bad people.
Two of this court's cases illustrate these principles in direct sales. Is that Colorado versus United States held that the mail order pharmacy could be convicted for assisting a small town's doctor's illegal distribution of narcotics. The pharmacy sold the doctor massive quantities of morphine, 5,000 to 6,000 half-grain tablets monthly versus the typical physician's 400 quarter-grain tablets annually. Whoa! Actively stimulated his purchases through special discounts and high-pressure sales methods and continued these practices despite law enforcement warnings. All of this showed that the pharmacy not only knew of and acquiesced in the doctor's illicit enterprise, but joined both mind and hand with him to take its accomplishment, make its accomplishment possible.
That's a really interesting case because the law enforcement is like, hey, this dude is selling this stuff illegally, and they're like, yeah, we don't care. And like all the signs were there, and they were told, hey, if you give to this guy, he's under investigation for illegal narcotics. Now, no one approached Smith and Wesson and said, hey, Rich here is gun running to the cartels. You might not want to sell to him. And Smith and Wesson wasn't like, yeah, we don't care. We're going to still sell to him. Keep on going.
We're going to have El Jefe Grande.
Yeah, but keep on going.
Let's see.
By contrast. By contrast, I'll finish this one. By contrast, in Twitter, the court dismissed aiding and abetting claims against the social media companies for aiding and abetting a terrorist attack carried out by ISIS. Although the plaintiffs there alleged that ISIS supporters used the company's platform for recruiting and fundraising, and that the companies knew this but failed to adequately remove ISIS content, that was not enough to make the company liable for ISIS terrorist acts. At most, the plaintiffs allege that the companies provided their platform for general use and then stood back and watched as ISIS misused them. And more was needed for a provider of generally available goods and services to be liable for customers' misuse of them. For example, the conduct of the kind in direct sales. So basically, Twitter was sued because ISIS was posting recruitment videos and propaganda on their website. They didn't remove it, even though they knew it was there, and the court said that they still can't be held responsible, which is a lot more than what Smith and Wesson was accused of. So if Twitter was now X was not guilty of that, and they could not be sued because of that, this bar that Mexico could try to set is a lot lower than what Twitter did. So there's no way that you can say Twitter is not, or X now, I guess you can say Twitter back then, cannot be sued, and say Smith and Wesson can be sued because there was a lot more smoke where Twitter was.
Mexico's lead claim that the manufacturers elect to sell guns to, among others, known rogue dealers fails to clear that bar. For one thing, it is far from clear that such behavior without more could ever count as aiding and abetting under the court's precedents. And in any event, Mexico has not said enough to make its allegations on this point plausible. It does not confront the manufacturer, what is that? I can't say, but directly supply any dealers, and its complaint does not name alleged bad Apple dealers or provide grounds for thinking that anyone up the supply chain often acquires that information. What Mexico has plausibly alleged is that manufacturers know some unidentified dealers, I'm assuming routinely, you got to scroll.
Sorry.
Yeah, routinely violate the law, but this describes indifference rather than assistance, similar
sorry.
Similar to insufficient allegations in Twitter.
Okay, that's basically saying that Mexico is speaking in generalities. They didn't give any concrete examples of where Smith and Wesson knew that there was a bad Apple dealer out there. They just said, that there are some bad Apple dealers out there. You might not know who they are, but since you know that there's some, you can't sell them.
For related reasons, Mexico's set of allegations that the manufacturers have declined to suitably regulate the dealers' practices cannot fill the gap. Of course, responsible manufacturers might well impose constraints on their distribution chains to reduce possibility of unlawful conduct, but a failure to do so is what Twitter called passive nonfeasance. In USC blah, such omissions and inactions, especially in an already highly regulated industry, are rarely the stuff of aiding and abetting liability, and nothing in Mexico's allegation makes them so. That's a real slamming the junk in the door on Mexico.
Yeah, basically.
Finally, Mexico's allegations about design and marketing decisions add nothing of consequence. Mexico focuses on production of military-style assault weapons, but these products are widely legal and purchased by ordinary consumers. Manufacturers cannot be charged with assisting criminal acts simply because Mexican cartel members also prefer these guns. The same applies to firearms with Spanish language names or graphics alluding to Mexican history. While they may be coveted by the cartels, they also may appeal to millions of law-abiding Hispanic Americans. Even the failure to make guns with non-defaceable serial numbers cannot show that manufacturers have joined both mind and hand with lawbreakers in the manner required for aiding and abetting.
Yeah, so basically that is that is basically the Mexican naming allegations that we talked about earlier. Keep on going.
So this is kind of interesting. Let's see. This conclusion aligns with Placa's core purpose, Congress enacted PLACA to halt lawsuits attempting to make gun manufacturers pay for harms resulting from the criminal unlawful misuse of firearms. Mexico's suit closely resembles those lawsuits, and while the predicate exemption allows some such lawsuits to proceed, accepting Mexico's theory would swallow most of the rule. The court doubts Congress intended to draft such a capricious way out of PLACA and, in fact, did not. So it says reversed and remanded. And this is interesting. So Kagan delivered the opinion, which is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we figured Thomas would do it, but
yeah. So basically, that is it. So basically, they reversed it and they sent it back down to the circuit court to go ahead and issue the opinion, which they're going to have to issue the opinion and that is consistent with this. Basically, they have to rule for Smith and Wesson here. But this is a good thing, and yeah, Kagan did go ahead and this was her decision. But like I like she wrote it, but like I said,
what cartel member influenced her?
I don't think any cartel member influenced her. Out of all the liberal judges in the Supreme Court, I dislike Kagan the least. I mean, I dislike Kagan the least.
Wow. Well, okay then. This is so we actually have the Brady organization, and I don't think James Brady was a bad guy, but this organization has gone off the rails, aiding and abetting Mexico in trying to, basically force gun manufacturers in the U.S. out of business.
Correct. I do want to get to some of these chats here. So let me just bring them up. I marked a couple here. And this one, I can see Mexico suing the United States for Fast and Furious. Now, they would actually have calls to do that. Let's see.
You mean not the movie franchise, but Eric Holder?
Yeah. Eric Holder, yeah. No, last week. Okay, I don't know why I marked that. Okay, Mexico was using attorneys picked up in front of Home Depot for $50 a day. That's why they lost. I know it's questionable, man. This is good news. This is good news from manufacturers. We are not responsible for actions of others. And there was one out there that says, why wasn't this on the order list? Because it wasn't an order. It was actually a opinion. So if you go to the SCOTUS website and you go to opinions, you'll find it in there, but you won't find it under orders because it's not an actual order. Yeah, it was his wife that was the main issue.
This is really, just disgusting and insulting that a country like Mexico that's bringing drugs into the United States, that's criminally enterprising in child and women, sex workers, all of these things, and they're coming after us because the lawful sale of guns in the United States.
Yeah, Holt's comment kind of goes along with that. So the U.S. can sue Mexico for selling Chinese-based fentanyl, basically. Oh, I almost ended the frame there. That would have been bad. Yeah, so that is a victory. Victory!
Yeah, I mean, basically, I don't mean to be a jerk about saying it is a victory, yes, but what it means is everything is the same. It's not like we have, concealed carry reciprocity
No.
or nationwide, constitutional carry. Things just stay the same.
Yeah, but
So
it does smack the First Circuit.
yeah. So what would the title be? It would be 9-0 decision
Keeping
keeps
the
the
face of the Second
face.
Amendment for all time, forever.
I'm making that short.
Now you see what you're doing there, Rich. All right, guys. I think that is it. We're gonna get out of here. Just wanted to go over this really fast and let you guys know what is going on because I like to keep you informed with actual breaking news.
So one last thing before we go. What's a non-defaceable serial number? I've noticed some of my firearms actually have the human readable serial number and a QR code. Does that make it more non-defaceable?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, one of the arguments that Mexico don't make is that the serial numbers can be defaced, and Smith and Wesson has to make a non-defaceable serial number. So, what does that mean? Do you like make it through the whole firearm where it extends through the firearm, or what?
Well, the ATF has regulations on the size and depth of a serial number.
Correct.
You know,
It seems like Mexico's trying to take that and said, "Hey, yeah,
and
maybe RFID the
so
whole." The good point, Johnny Three Bar. Maybe RFID the whole firearm. And Jordan Vinro's out there. What's up, Jordan Vinro? Gideon Optics. Gideon Optics makes freaking fantastic optics at an affordable price. You can get their Gideon Optics. You can get some JSD supply stuff there, which Jordan also owns. Here are Triggers, Eagle Shows, Big Reno Shows, and a bunch of other great companies. And this is not an ad read. So there you go.
Gideon box is across the room. It's next to my guitar. I got to point to my guitar. There it is. Yeah, next to
Hi,
my
Ron
guitar.
Rain. Ron Rain also has a great channel, but no, Gideon, all the Jordan Vinrose companies are great companies, and he really supports the Second Amendment community, and we should support the companies that support us, and all of Jordan's companies really do support us
And
in more ways than you know, a lot behind the scenes.
did you see the JSD jet? It's a joke. There's no JSD jet.
All right. Well, with that, we're gonna get out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back today. I know we haven't done a show in a while, like a 5 o'clock show. It's just my kid got hurt. I got stuck on some paperwork stuff. Yeah, just it's been one of those
week and a half
that's been just everything's been blowing up.
Hey, we all have lives. We don't make our money doing this, unfortunately.
No, we don't. And last week I was traveling for my day job, so I was somewhere. Yeah, Jordan, he was flying on his bike and like lost control, slid across asphalt, got all.
I hope there's pictures of him flying over a ramp.
Yeah, got all scraped up and everything else. All bloody, but he's fine.
Do you have it on the security camera?
Nah. No, even if I did have it on the security camera, I wouldn't release it. But he's fine. But he was just bloodied up. Lost a tooth, but it was a baby tooth.
Oh, agorizer, dude.
So Rich taught him how to ride, yeah. But he's fine. Yeah. Tomorrow we will not be doing a show because both of my kids have piano recitals.
Nice.
And with that, we're out of here. Yeah. One of my kids is jumping up to like high school math, so that's gonna We're going
to
to
make all of his
math
elementary
base.
school friends jealous.
He's just jumping up to like 11th grade math, basically. So they had to fill out paperwork to give him permission to do that, and that's gonna suck for me because then I'm gonna have to, because you know you don't really use 11th grade math a lot, especially for like a 7th grader.
But that's like
Right.
all the calculus I learned and wasted my time on.
Exactly. So I'm gonna have to like relearn all that crap that I haven't used since high school, and to help him. But I'll do it. I'll read a book or something and memorize it. I'll probably come back to me. All right. Probably still rattling up in my head somewhere. There you go.
Or in the
All right.
chip.
I'm off to the cardiologist to find out. Good luck with that, Tuck. Good luck, Tuck, with that. And see you guys later.